I'll tell you about a statement that occurred to me a couple of weeks ago when I was writing this presentation. My predecessor, Passage District Governor Gary Wong, said to me, "You know, Dennis," he might not have said, "you know," he was very good about that. Dennis Dawson, he said, "Evaluation is the heart of Toastmasters." And okay, thanks, Gary. Yeah, that's right. Evaluation is a terribly important thing that we do. And it's one of those things that kind of eats at you over time. And a couple of weeks later, it became my own idea, as it often does. Evaluation is absolutely central to our mission. There isn't a single thing that we do in Toastmasters that doesn't get immediate, concrete feedback. So, for $1 a week, you can get feedback on your leadership skills, on your presentation skills, from somebody who knows from leadership and presentation. If you make the decision that you're always going to give an effective evaluation, and you make the decision that you're always going to listen to the evaluation that you receive. Evaluation is not just the heart of Toastmasters in terms of that's the central core of what we do. It's also the way that we show we care about people. When you care about someone, you care enough to tell them the truth. Only my wife will tell me about my clothing and the appropriateness of that tie with that shirt. She is the only person who ever mentions to me whether or not I have showered frequently enough. My wife tells me the things I need to know in order to function in society because she cares, or pretends to, or at least doesn't want to smell me. And so when we do these evaluations, it is where you put your passion as a Toastmaster. We're going to spend the next section of our day talking about why evaluation is so crucial for the member, for the club, and for the organization. We're going to start off with Mr. Mike Daley talking about how evaluation is the one thing we can always improve. How are we doing?
Great.
Thumbs up?
Great.
All right. Everyone here is a leader.
Can I ask a quick question?
You
before
can.
go on
Jump right in.
Okay. When can a person get started on doing evaluations? How many speeches do they have to do? Or?
It goes by club. We usually have 3 speeches.
No, that's the
Is that the
Toastmasters guideline.
Okay, yeah. After 3 speeches, you can start doing Toastmaster, doing evaluations. But I would suggest to you that you start people being trained in how to give an evaluation from the moment they start. Because evaluation is the one thing we can always improve. Always. Oh, there are speakers in Toastmasters who have reached such a level of proficiency, like Ying Sang Man, that after a while, she plateaus. She continues to get better, and she takes steps at each opportunity she gets to speak. But the amount of increase is not as great. Similarly, once you become a leader, you know what to do. And it's easy to be a leader. So you don't benefit that much more each time you do a leadership role. But evaluation is the one thing that each one of us can and needs to get better at each time we do it. And why is that? Because the evaluation speech in the club is the leader's speech. The leaders of the club must give the best evaluations and show the club how we can best give back to the membership. And you know where you get all your information? Read the manual. The Competent Communication Manual gives you every tool you need. When was the last time you read the Competent Communication Manual? If you've read the manual cover to cover in the last 6 months, raise your hand. That's half of you, and I'm impressed. Every one of you needs to read this manual cover to cover. and I would do it every 6 months. We seldom focus on being better evaluators, but performance analysis and motivational feedback is where we fulfill the mission of Toastmasters. Has anyone here had an evaluation that made you feel great or made you feel horrible?
I've had both.
Tell us about the one that made you feel great.
It was my icebreaker speech when I was a new Toastmaster.
Great time.
Yeah.
Right? And did it make you want to come back to the club?
Absolutely. Made me want to come back, yeah.
That's right. And was it insightful feedback that helped you grow as a speaker?
It was, yes.
That's why we're all here. Be better at evaluations. Never give up trying to be better. You won't plateau. You can always be almost as good as the person I'm about to introduce. For the next segment on evaluations, please welcome Brendan Murphy.
Whoa, fantastic. Toastmasters gives us so many opportunities to be evaluated. How do you grow? You get feedback. We thrive on feedback in Toastmasters. Oral feedback, written feedback, just facial expressions from the audience. How we get that feedback is important. And Toastmasters has structured feedback throughout the organization at all sorts of levels. First, you got to know about the HPL, the High Performance Leadership. How many people have done their HPL in the room? Yeah, okay. I want to tell you, it is a struggle. It is interesting because it's all qualitative feedback, and it says, how are you doing as a leader during a project? Highly recommend you do that. Make that something you can do. You can do it at any time in your Toastmasters career, normally with a project, and Dennis Dawson over there has a lot of projects for us to do at all times. So be aware of that, that you have not only a work committee as a leader, you need people to work with you, but you also have a guidance committee to give you that feedback. And I want to say, the first time I did the HPL, I failed. It wasn't because my work committee wasn't doing the work. My guidance committee started fighting amongst themselves, and it was all because of my lack of clarity in my vision. And that was a complete failure. I went away from it here, came back the following year, did the HPL again, and completed it. It was successful. And I really appreciate that failure and that success. That contrast I learned through both experiences. A great way of getting feedback as a leader is the HPL. Fantastic way. That is one way you can do it. Then the clubs, of course, you have the evaluation speeches, but you also have the general evaluator. Now, just a personal question. Have any of you ever been to a bad meeting, either in Toastmasters, at work, in a community organization, a bad meeting? Anybody? Boring, disgusted? Okay, keep those hands up if you were leading one of those bad meetings. I work at AT&T, a multinational company with 300,000 people and approximately the same amount of bad meetings per week. When you go to a great meeting, it is a powerful use of time. Meetings are an amazing leadership and working tool, but they are so abused again and again. When you go to Toastmasters and the general evaluator speaks, listen, because that feedback will help you run more effective meetings throughout and maybe change some bad meeting leader habits in other people as well. Now, the general evaluator's role is defined in your Competent Communicator Manual, pages 66 through 67. I encourage you to read this role because when the GE gets up and gives feedback, not just to the evaluators, but to the Toastmaster, to the participants as well, it gives you a way to grow as a more effective meeting leader. And I'll tell you this, feedback from general evaluators has helped me keep my job at AT&T. One of my major functions now is simply to chair a decision-based meeting once a week, a 1-hour meeting. And because of what I learned in Toastmasters and a lot from the feedback from the GE, I have kept my job. This is important stuff. So, in addition to the general evaluator looking at your meetings and how that club standard is being met and do those meetings fulfill the mission, the DCP gives you quantitative measurements. And as you say, you target those because they reflect back on the mission. As you fulfill these DCP goals, you're fulfilling the mission. So it gives you a sense of where you are. And so every time your executive committee meets, you say, how are we doing on the DCP? And if you've got 3 out of 10, you need to push more. If you got 9 out of 10, you know you're really getting a good chance of fulfilling your mission. So be aware of that, and that's once again the 3 areas we talked about earlier: the administrative goals, the education goals, and the membership retention and new member goals. So that gives you quantitative feedback on answering the question, how are we doing as a club? Then the moments of truth. Once a year, your club should set aside a whole meeting to do the moments of truth, and what that does is it challenges the group to look at aspects of the healthy club and find out where areas where your club is unhealthy. And so you can say, hey, we need to fix this part of our club because it's unhealthy right now, so let's do that. Once a year, that's your membership giving you direct feedback and saying, hey, this is how we need to grow. Encourage you to do it and take that effort. Now, every area, division, district in Toastmasters has their own goals, their own objective goals. Things like number of club visits, percentage of clubs with 20 people or more, number of distinguished clubs, and the educational goals achieved. At every level, these goals are out there. But it's not just about the numbers. In fact, the numbers are only a sign, a symptom of whether these clubs, areas, districts, divisions are healthy or not. Those numbers are there to guide you and to say, hey, here's a weak spot, let's grow. So be aware that those evaluation tools, some of them metrics, some of them qualitative, can help you say, we're doing it, we're fulfilling the mission. We, as a club, as an organization, are making a positive difference in people's lives. And that is the ultimate feedback you want to feel. With that, the next person to talk a little bit about evaluation, if I can speak, you won't be evaluating what I just said. I hope not. Please help me welcome the birthday boy, 52 years young, Dennis Dawson!
Last time, I'll use my joke. I had to celebrate my birthday in less than a minute because it was my 52nd birthday. Now I don't get to use that ever again. 52nd.
So I had to be explained.
All right. Most of the time when we talk about evaluation, we're talking about individual speech evaluations. And it comes as a surprise sometimes when we say that speakers want constructive criticism.
What?
Sometimes... What?
Speakers want constructive criticism?
Well, no. I think what you mean to say is speakers want constructive
of course
criticism.
that's what I meant to say.
They do want it. That's what we come together to do. We come together to grow as an individual, but we can't do it alone. You can speak in front of a mirror all your life, and you're never going to really improve the way you will if you've got a group of people who are reflecting back to you. So it's true that speakers want constructive criticism.
Okay, Dennis, I understand speakers want constructive criticism, but speakers want constructive criticism.
And by that you meant speakers.
Right, they're not talkers, because talkers talk because they love the sound of their voice. But speakers want constructive criticism because they want to improve their communication. They want to develop their skills. They want to continue improving those skills. That's why they want constructive criticism.
I see. Okay, so she's making the point that it's speakers, not talkers. But
speakers want constructive criticism.
Well, what do you mean by that?
Speakers want constructive criticism. They need specific feedback on what they're doing well and where they can do better. It can boost someone's self-esteem. At first you hear nothing but praise, but eventually that wears thin, Dennis. If you don't give people an honest assessment of what they do well and what needs work, they'll never improve. Ultimately, they'll leave the club because they aren't getting what they signed up for, is what I mean.
So it's the criticism then. Okay, so...
No, Dennis, speakers want constructive criticism. It's very constructive. And you know why? It's true that people want to hear, hey, what needs improvement? It it needs to be delivered in a positive way. As my mom used to say, if you can't say something nicely, don't say it at all. So make it constructive in how you deliver it.
My mother used to say, if you can't say something nice, don't say nothing at all, stupid. And so perhaps I'm not the best person to talk about this. Let's have somebody come up here who really knows how to give an effective evaluation. Ying Sang Man.
All right, how to give effective evaluations. Let me tell you a story. The first time I went to Toastmasters, I was a guest, I sat in, I listened to this person give their icebreaker speech, easy for me to say, and I thought they did okay. But then the evaluator ripped this guy apart, and I was horrified. I did not go back to Toastmasters for 7 years. Because I didn't want to be up there and be criticized like that. So, how do you give an effective evaluation? You offer methods of improvement, yes, but you also build self-esteem. You give them praise. You tell them what they did well. And then you sandwich in a little bit of improvement, and then you maintain that praise. That way they come back the next time. And you have to have the improvement because otherwise we would never improve. You have to have the improvement because other people need to hear as well. If you do have lots and lots and lots of improvements to be made, or suggestions to be made, take the person aside afterwards and privately suggest additional improvements if you feel that person can handle all of these improvements. All of this has to be done in a very timely way. You can't go back to your desk, think about it for 6 hours, 1 week, and then give the feedback to the person because they don't remember what they did. It's over with, it's done, I don't want to think about it. The whole speech is forgotten. But if you give them the timely feedback, it's fresh in their minds and they can think about it and apply it for next time. To prepare for an evaluation, you need to know what the goal is. If you speak about how the person didn't use their gestures or didn't use their props properly, well, if they're at the beginning of the manual and really the whole objective was to organize their speech, let's concentrate on that and give them the focus that they need. Read the evaluation guide. If you're new at evaluations, the evaluation guide will give you step by step. So you don't feel like this is totally new. And very importantly, talk to the speaker beforehand. Find out what it is they really want you to look for in addition to the guide. Then there's maybe something that they just, it keeps dogging them. For me, it was always projection. I can't hear you.
What?
Exactly. And it took me
Call that projection.
forever to, and even now I have problems projecting. It's just something I need to work on, and I always ask my evaluator, let me know if you can't hear me. Just do a little cup behind the ears type of thing. So the speakers themselves know what they want to work on as well as the objective. Try not to echo past evaluations. I always cringe when I hear the term, you drew me in. How many times do we have to hear that? That's such a cliche. Think of a different way to say it. Just something more spontaneous. When you're completing the evaluation guide, You don't have to answer every single question when you're in front of the audience. You do have to fill everything out though, just to complete the project for the speaker. And as I said before, use the sandwich method. What the speaker did well, what things to improve on. Encourage the speaker to come back again, because that's the whole point of Toastmasters, is to come back, practice, improve, see how they did. The use of the language. I find that if I say, well, you didn't do this, or you sounded kind of faint, that is not nice sounding to the speaker. Better to say, well, I had a little trouble hearing, or I couldn't follow the organization. Using the I word more will be more effective. The evaluator's mantra is what I saw, what I heard, and what I felt.
You know, Ying Sang, what I saw, what I heard, what I felt, it was good information and all that stuff, but I have a quiz for you, and I need some answers for you. Get some help from the audience if you need. So, quick quiz. Do you or don't you, Ying Sang, speak for the audience?
No,
Why not?
because it's just my opinion. I'm just one voice among many. If you, as the speaker, gave a speech that you thought was pretty decent, and the evaluator came up with something from left field, okay, that's just one person. Get a second opinion from somebody else. There are lots of evaluators out there. There may be some evaluators who are a little inexperienced and came up with some wild suggestion or wild idea. See what other people think. Go to your mentor and see what they think.
Good thing, good answer. Judges, you agree?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, fantastic. Now, Ying Sang Man, do you or don't you speak impersonally? They say.
They say
People
you
should.
should.
Some people say that's best.
Who is they? Who are some people? No, don't have other people speak. Just give your own opinion as the evaluator.
Okay, I'll accept that fairly. Do you or don't you use judging language? If you want to do it right, you have to. Or if you were to,
Oh, you do that to me all the time, Brenda.
help.
And no, it didn't help.
Okay, well, fantastic. Be that way. And another question: do you or don't you use words like always or never?
You always ask questions
I
He
like that
never
question.
lets you finish.
No, it does.
Okay, well, fine. Be that way. You know, using all these people for help. Well, nicely done. Do you or don't you repeat a point? Do you repeat the point, or do you repeat the point unless briefly stated?
I'm getting some help over there.
Yeah,
What
okay.
does Mike think?
Only in the conclusion.
Only in the conclusion. Yes, when you're wrapping up.
He
To
forgot the
emphasize a
adverb.
point.
He forgot the adverb.
No, he gets from
Okay, only briefly.
Briefly.
All right, and finally, do you or don't you evaluate who the speaker is?
Who the speaker is? What do you mean?
You evaluate the speaker. Man, oh, you're funny looking. I don't know.
Oh,
You know.
personally.
Yeah.
Why'd you wear that white dress today?
Well, you're so great. We love
Let's
you.
not talk about Brendan's evaluation.
Yeah. You know, it doesn't help to tell people they've got big ears. It's nothing they can change, right? It doesn't help to tell them that they stink.
Unless they smell really bad.
Now, about dress, Tanya's been told that she looked better in a blue dress. Okay, that didn't really help either. But you know, there are some very appropriate times when you can say, I felt like the dress was not quite appropriate for the occasion. For instance, if I wore some flouncy, flowery dress that showed a lot of leg, okay, this is not some fashion show here. I'm trying to come across as an experienced speaker, somebody professional. So I would
answering those questions. Judges, how did she do?
So now it looks like
You are off the hook, and I'm
Oh,
not
thank
bad.
you.
Because you covered most of my material. Okay, audience members, this is your quiz, and we'll avoid the judging Brendan and let Dennis be our judge. Do we whitewash when we evaluate?
That was an awesome question.
That's an awesome question. Why do we not want to whitewash?
Because it doesn't help the person you're evaluating.
Right? It doesn't improve, and what does it do to your own credibility?
Diminishes.
And what is whitewash?
Whitewash is when I tell you that speech you just gave was so expert, it was so on the point, and there is nothing in the world that you could do to improve it. You have reached the utmost of your potential. I don't know why you're here.
But what if the speaker is an advanced speaker, you're someone new, and as far as you're concerned, that's true?
You should give them an even tougher evaluation. And I've seen and I've been evaluated by very new club members that have brought things out that other club members haven't seen. And I've had to go back and think about it and say, oh yeah, that's right. There's nothing wrong with giving people areas to grow. Stretch goals, for example.
There's no one of that caliber in our district, so you lucked out.
Or in Toastmasters.
Now, as Ying Sang brought up, do we reach for the offbeat criticisms like the blue is more your color than pink? And I can really appreciate how Mike wore blue today. It brought out his eyes when he was up here. Did y'all notice that? He was stunning. But I think he would be so much more stunning in that purple that Nicole has. I can't understand why he wouldn't have chosen that color. Does that help him? No. So we never, we don't want to do that. But if there's an elephant in the room per se, somebody that says, you know, or is a king of Ozanums, you don't have to wait for the off counter to point that out to them. You can tell them that. A lot of people come to Toastmasters because English is their second language. There is a lot of political sensitivity about pointing that out. However, I would recommend that you do point that out. I sponsored a club called Toast to Berkeley. And this club is full of PhDs, postdoctorate students, visiting scholars at the University of California, Berkeley. They are there for that exact reason. They know that even though they have these advanced degrees, that their English might not be up to par. So this can only help them move it further along.
Yeah, it's helped Ying Sang a great deal because she speaks British.
Yeah, I couldn't understand her at all at first. But
Yeah,
now it's
we've
perfect.
almost worked it out. This is just an awkward time for someone else to take over because you can't be looking at pretty women all day. No recaps. I really loved your speech about going to Milan. First you took us to Il Duomo and you described all the beautiful statues. And then you showed us the statue of Leonardo da Vinci across from La Scala. And we were there in La Scala and we saw all of the books. What the hell? Yeah, did you like the speech? Was there anything effective about it? No. Don't get up there and redo the speech again. And for God's sake, don't rewrite the speech. You'll have people, you know that joke you used halfway through? I wouldn't use that joke. I got this feedback from a DTM. He said, here, this is the joke I would put into your speech. There were some summer rooms. Some are for boys, some are for girls. Not helpful. Bad joke. Don't rewrite the joke or the speech for the people. No halos, and I think this is kind of what you were referring to. Sonny's in my club. There's Hugh Bustle, excellent speaker in our club. I do okay. When we get up and speak, people will sometimes give us an evaluation. Oh, it's so hard to evaluate you, Hugh. You're just such a good speaker. I really enjoyed everything you did. Well, Hugh's not the world champion of public speaking.
And even if he was,
Even if he were,
were.
he would be correcting.
Well played, sir.
Let me tell you about the world champion of public speaking. I was really pleased to hear Rory Vaden, who only took second place, talk about his process. He practiced his speech 300 times. He spoke every place they would let him. He was chased off of street corners where he was giving his world championship speech. He worked and worked and worked. And every time he gave the speech, people gave him feedback. And he took second place. That's an astounding, in the world, an astounding achievement. But he did it because people continually gave him feedback. That's what we're here in Toastmasters for. So don't start thinking that somebody in your club is so good there's just nothing else to tell them. Because I'll tell you, we have a club called Prep Squad, and everybody in there, Mike Daley won District 4 last year in the International Speech Contest. Ying Sang Man took second place in our International Speech Contest. And every time you speak, do we just say, oh, you guys are great?
Negatory, good buddy.
Our club, they'll give a 7-minute speech. We'll spend an hour evaluating the speech and picking it apart and finding lots and lots of stuff. If this were a typical speech in a typical club, you'd go, whoa, I'm blown out of the water. But if you want to be the world champion of public speaking, that takes a different level of commitment and a different type of evaluation. And I personally feel we should be giving that kind of evaluation, that level of evaluation, appropriate to their current skill level, but always something that's going to help them to grow, always to help them stretch at every level of the organization. Finally, as far as giving evaluations, please remember it is never about you. Now, it's a little different when you get into a contest where it's going to be a little bit of like a speech, and you want to entertain, you want to perform a little bit. But in your club, if anybody walks out of your meeting and says, oh, Dennis was so funny when he gave that evaluation, Dennis failed. If somebody said, Dennis made me cry when he was talking about how poor that speech was, Dennis failed. Everybody should be saying, I really liked what Dennis said about this person's speech. I agreed with that. I disagreed with what Dennis said. My opinion would be different. That's what people should be saying when they walk out. They should not be saying, what a great evaluation. If they ever do, you fail. All right. But as I said, it's a little different when you go to a contest. And for expert on evaluation contest, I can think of no one better at the moment than Mike Daley. Any idiot can win a district contest in the International Speech Contest.
You should know.
Any idiot. All you have to do is practice. That's it. That's all you have to do. Ask Brendan Murphy. Any idiot can win the table topics contest. Any idiot. And if you don't wear tights that are way too tight, you could probably also win the humorous contest.
Now you tell me.
But only a leader who practices, works, reads, and does their best to get better with each evaluation can win the evaluation contest. And I wish I did, but I got second! The evaluation contest is the most important contest in Toastmasters. More important than the World Championship of Public Speaking. Because it's how you give back to your club. And when you're in the contest, everything is the same as what you just heard. Except you have a clear criterion for your speech in the evaluation contest. 40% of your score will be analytical quality. How do you find analytical quality?
Go to law school.
It'll ruin you. Read the manual. Ooh. Use stance, movement, gestures, facial expressions, and eye contact to get your point across. That's how you analyze a speech. Know the competent communication manual. That's 40% of your points. 2, recommendations are 30% of your points. Don't just tell people, you know, I really love the way you talked about Uncle Bob. No, you give them useful tips. I like the way you talked about Uncle Bob, but you know, it might have been even better if you would have used the scratchy voice from New York to talk about your Uncle Bob. Give them specific suggestions. That's the way you get 30% of your points. Technique. Where do you find speech technique? Join me, people. The Competent Communication Manual teaches everything you need to know about technique. But wait, there's more. There's one thing that nobody knows about. They never know this, and I love it when I'm competing, because I watch every competitor leave 15 points sitting there on the floor. Summation. A clear, concise summation is 15 out of 100 points. I have watched district contests where the winner and the other people on the podium forgot to give a summation. Most likely it's the people who don't finish on the podium. Always give a summation. And we're judges, but we're dumb. So say, in summary, or in conclusion, and then conclude. Look at the ballot. Read the ballot. As I told you before, if you tell me what you want, I'll give it to you. In the evaluation contest, we tell you what we want. Give it to us. Now, help me welcome Mr. Sergeant at Arms himself, David Small.
As long as I have the lectern, I'm going to tell a story about my family. This week, my son had to deliver a book report, and that included a physical presentation. He built a model of the White House. He gave a written report about George Washington, and he had to give an oral presentation about George Washington and the White House. He's in 2nd grade, so he's not very good at planning and getting ready for the delivery date. As the date approached, tensions grew high in our house. As it got closer and closer to the date, tensions grew high. I stayed out of it. It was mostly between my wife and my son. Culminating in her looking at him and yelling, "Are you even listening to me? Do you hear what I'm saying?" And at this point, my Toastmasters training came in handy. Well, that and remembering that when I said to her, you know, that wasn't very supportive and positive. Toastmasters teaches us, well, that wasn't a well-received bit of guidance for her. And so I realized I don't need to give her advice on how to evaluate. Maybe what I need to do is teach Zachary how to be evaluated. Turns out that's an important skill too. Learning how to be evaluated, and being a good evaluatee ensures that you will get the most out of your evaluation. And furthermore, it helps the evaluators learn how to give you the evaluation. So let's go through what it takes to be evaluated and how you can do a better job. So first thing I said to Zachary is, where is the rubric? Where is the guideline for how you're supposed to do this project? And he brought out the assignment. And I said, did you read the assignment? He said, yes. So he had done step number 1. Read the lesson. You all have the CC manual. If you're going through the CC manual, you'll read the project lesson. Now you know what you're going to be evaluated on and what you're supposed to do.
Wait, David, don't you make a speech and then flip through the book to find a lesson that you can stick it to?
Only if you don't want to get better.
Oh.
And in fact, now you led me down an aside. So I've been through the CC manual, I think 3 times now. I've been through a lot of other manuals. The reason I keep going back to the CC manual is because it happens to be my favorite. And I go through it in order most times. I think that progression of lessons is a firm foundation and very educational for learning how to become a better speaker. Going through it out of sequence or just flipping through and finding a project you're going to use, that's not going to help you learn that lesson all that well. So before you do your project, read the lesson. Second, before you give your speech, pull your evaluator aside when you hand them the manual so that they can give you a written evaluation. You can tell them, you know, I'm not sure the way this prop is working is right. Or I know that this is about vocal variety, but I'm also working on my comedy timing in this speech. So any tips you can give me would be great. Any observations, I'd really appreciate. If you give them suggestions about what to watch for and what you'd like to be observed, you're going to get feedback, and then you're going to grow as a speaker. That's before you give your speech. During the evaluation, you could just ignore it. They're going to tell you everything afterwards. But you've got to help the evaluator become a better evaluator. How do you do that? With attentive listening. Even if they're wrong, and Brendan's given me some wrong evaluations, let me tell you.
Mostly wrong.
Even if they're wrong, don't argue with them, certainly not during the evaluation. Don't grimace, make faces, shake your head, give any indication that you disagree with them. You're supposed to be encouraging how effectively they're giving an evaluation, not whether the information they're presenting is necessarily correct, because they need to learn how to give an evaluation. Don't make jokes, and carefully consider their suggestions and decide whether you're going to accept them. Don't be too quick to reject the suggestions, even if they're from Brendan. But also don't be too quick to accept their suggestions either. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. Consider them. Now also, that's what you do with your senses during their evaluation. You're paying attention to them, you're considering what they're doing, and you're encouraging them. But also, you're going to use your brain while they're giving you the evaluation. You have to think critically about what you did well and see how that meshes with what they're telling you. Compare your assessment with the evaluators and decide if they're different, who is more right. Then after the meeting, when you get your manual back with the written evaluation, speak with the evaluator. Typically, an evaluation will only offer one suggestion for improvement out loud in front of everyone. But very often, Brendan finds a lot more things he disliked about my speech, and he's willing to list them for me one-on-one. Furthermore, if I told him I really am having trouble with this prop, how did it go? He's going to give me specific feedback on how well that prop worked, and maybe some suggestions for how I can make it work better the next time I give the speech. Now, let's suppose you disagree with what the evaluator is saying. Before you would reject their suggestion, make sure you understand it. And the best way to make sure you understand it is to play it back for them. Restate their suggestion in your own words. Let me understand this. You're saying I should do this with my right hand as opposed to my left hand because people read from left to right? That didn't really happen. But use... Thanks. But you restate it, replay it back for them. Make sure you're understanding exactly what the suggestion is. Maybe you're focusing on the wrong part of what they said and you're not understanding what their suggestion is. If you understand their suggestion, then you can decide, is this something I'm going to accept or something I'm going to reject? And lastly, remember, it's just Mike's opinion. And he's wrong a lot. So sometimes he's going to be wrong. And if so, just let it go and know that you helped him by being someone who was good at being evaluated, and then get on with building the White House and giving your oral presentation. Now to talk about different types of evaluations, our district member.
I just want to run through some of the types of evaluation that you can try in your club. Now, the evaluation you generally do is someone goes through the lesson, talks about the points in the book. That's the type of evaluation you should do for most speeches. However, it's fun to mix it up every now and again. One of the ways you can do that is to have people specialize in what they're going to evaluate. So one person evaluates all the introductions. One person evaluates all the gestures for all the speeches in the meeting. And another one evaluates the organization of the speeches. And have each of them talk in turn about the different speeches.